but I can't go without talking about Homeland because it's so good right now. So let's talk a little bit about.
It's always been good.
It's always been good. That is true. I mean, it was like a different show at the beginning, and it's been good. They've changed it up season after season. Brody was gone so early on, and yet it seemed like, how could you come back from that? But certainly they did. And, it's so good to see it wrapping up so strongly, I would say. And you get to be a big part of that, which is super cool. So I saw you on Instagram Live the other night. You were taking some questions.
Yeah.
That was so funny. Let me just tell you, it was so funny to watch the people's reactions when you chose them. Right. So for anybody watching and listening, so you did an Instagram Live, and I guess you had it hooked up to Facebook too, and people were coming on with their questions, and you just kind of randomly selected people to come on and have a conversation with you. And they were so funny. So the first thing everyone said was, "Oh my God, you're so great. I'm like such a fan," which is great. I'm sure you hear it all the time. But then the funniest one to me was the guy who picked up in Australia, I think it was. Mm-hmm. And then he was like, "Oh my God, I have to go. My wife has to see that I'm talking to you right now." Do you remember that?
Yeah.
It's so funny. So you're telling him, "Oh, that's funny. I lived in Australia too," right? I think you said that to him.
Yeah.
And he was so determined to get to his wife and so like discombobulated that he couldn't even focus. It was so funny. But anyway, that was very amusing. And you took a lot of Homeland questions that night.
I did, yeah.
So
the least we can do right now, when everybody is stuck at home, not everybody has a chance to kind of have a communication. Yeah. So I thought, the least I can do is open all of the channels available to me and try to make fans feel a little bit closer.
Yeah. Well, Homeland is great for right now, by the way, also. I find personally that there are like two types of shows that are perfect for this time period where everybody's indoors and the whole world has like completely changed. So it's either like tragic or like dire and dangerous situations that are urgent. You know what I mean? Like things like Homeland, perfect. Or the opposite, which is like such a ridiculous comedy. Like, I don't know if you watch Schitt's Creek. Have you ever seen that?
No. I am aware of the show, but
that's another
I haven't
good
seen
one.
it. Yeah.
But Homeland is so good. So let's talk about Homeland real quick. Okay. All right. So what is your deal? What is Yevgeny's deal with Carrie? Look like there's some stuff going on. I know that a lot of fans are like more concerned about, is this going to be a relationship for Carrie? We want this. But like, I think the more pressing thing is, whose side are you on and what are you doing with her?
It's a lot of the questions that get asked. They're about, are you loyal? Is Yevgeny loyal to Carrie, or is Yevgeny loyal to Russia? And I really don't think it's a fair enough question, because they're not really loyal to one another. They're loyal to their countries. They're loyal to their people. They're not always loyal to their governments, because they feel that being loyal to the people of their countries is more important than being loyal to the governments. Hence, Carrie constantly getting into trouble.
Yes.
But as far as being loyal to one another, I don't think there is that. I think I don't think anybody is really loyal to one another. I really feel that at this point they are really discovering each other, and what they recognize, which is more important, is that they have finally found someone who understands them. Because similar to Carrie, Yevgeny has gone through life not being able to connect to women, not being able to connect to co-workers, because nobody can understand. Well, first of all, he cannot talk about his work. And even if he did, nobody would be able to understand or relate to what he's got to do and what he's going through, So he ends up being this lone wolf, basically on a constant mission, which changes. Carrie is not his only mission. He has a number of things going on. So at this moment, they're still trying to figure it out. The beauty of the writing and what Alex and the team were able to create was we know where they're coming from, but we don't know as audience where they're going. And the audience is discovering it together with the characters.
Right, right.
So at this point, we know that, like, we found out that Carrie was withholding information about the black/orange box literally a few minutes before Yevgeny did.
Mm-hmm.
And how can you be loyal to somebody who was clearly withholding information from you? On the other hand, they both understand that they cannot be completely transparent with one another. Even though they are looking basically at a mirror reflection of themselves, they cannot be completely honest with one another at this point anyway. It will take a lot more than just a few days on the road in a Land Rover Defender without the air conditioner through the roads of Afghanistan to kind of bond.
Yes.
So I'd say that I'd say they're still discovering it.
Yeah, it's so
and they will
good
continue
too
to
to not
discover it.
know. Yeah, it's so you want to not know. Also, really, like I would be
Well, that's
really
the beauty of television. That's the beauty
Exactly.
of television, is that you find out, actually more than the characters do, because pieces of the puzzle that were sort of like dispersed through the lives of other characters, whereas we as characters are in our own bubbles, in our own worlds. So, once Yevgeny is on the road with Carrie, he doesn't know what's happening in the CIA headquarters. He doesn't know what Sol is doing until it's reported to him. So they're in those bubbles until they get those sort of phone calls, and they're like, okay, well, this is what's going on with Pakistan and the US and this and that. So
it was good. A lot of
they're
twists this
discovering.
season. It's good. A lot of twists. You don't see them coming. It's all good, and you don't know who's with who or whatever. But Carrie and Saul seem to be on solid ground too, so that's always good for all of us, the viewers out there. And you were too, right? You watched it before you ever were on it, right?
Yeah. I was a fan of it from day one. I never thought I would be on that show, but I was watching it like from the very beginning. Yeah.
That must be a little intimidating, right? When you go and you're like, okay, this is great. But at the same time, it's like you go and you're already going on to the show that you love and it's very established. Is it a little?
I wouldn't call it intimidating, but it definitely has an added element of responsibility, because first of all, the show is so huge. I mean, it's one of the top shows in the world. And the show has been successful. The characters have been successful for so many years. Before I joined it, it's already been successful for 6 years. And you come in and you basically, when you create a character, you create them and then you bring them and then you let them play. You let them exist in the world that's created by the writers and directors. And a lot of the time, you basically, you bring a character that hasn't played in that world before. Whereas there's all these other guys who've been playing together for 6 years.
Yeah.
All these actors and the crew that's been bonding for the last 6 years. So there is that added element of responsibility. You want to make sure that, the character you've created fits into the puzzle of the puzzle of this story. But this is where, Alex and I were having, before my day one, like I did most of my work before I started on day one. And even before I started filming, Alex and I and Leslie and I had a number of conversations on the phone to make sure that we're kind of seeing in the same direction. Because at the end of the day, my job is to help them realize their vision. So there's no point of me bringing a character that's not really fitting with their vision.
Right.
So that's that.
Okay. So I just have to make one comment on Homeland before we move on to the Americans. So Max, poor Max, and after all of this time, like his last days were such a struggle. I'm like, poor Max, all this time he had to go through all this. And it reminded me that Quinn went through the same thing. Quinn, do you remember when Quinn died? I mean, there was so much struggle for Quinn before he finally died. And I thought, oh, this is just terrible. I feel so bad for both of them.
Well, there's an element of storytelling that's involved there, for sure. But Max has been one of 3 characters that started this show. It was Carrie, Saul, and Max. And Max been there through
The
everything,
whole thing is, oh, you always see Max, like he'll be out for a while and then, oh, Max.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And the beauty of what Maury was able to do is that I think you may have picked up on when I did the broadcast a couple of days ago. His storyline this season was shot back to front because we had to shoot the death scene in Morocco, and then basically the rest of his journey to the helicopters and the run back and all that sort of stuff when we got to LA because of different aspects of filmmaking. And so he had to basically die before he was able to leave and tell the rest of the story and find the orange box and all these things. And Maury's become a very, very dear friend of mine. And
that's so cool. He did a great job. Tell him we all appreciate what he went through and what he did to communicate that to all of us this season. And the whole time, you're right. He's been there all along. Always there's Max. So
But he was absolutely. He was more than the staple of the show. He was always kind of Carrie's confidant.
Yeah.
And Carrie wasn't able to tell everything to Saul because Saul could easily shut her down, but Max was always there for her and all her sort of like black operations and things that she did.
All good. All right, so let's switch to the Americans because that's another amazing show. Like, so you've been on such good things, and like Once Upon a Time in America too. Hello. I mean, this is some good stuff you've been in. So the Americans, I mean, dear to my heart, love that show. The ending, I mean, spoiler for anybody who hasn't seen it, but that was maybe one of the best finales, I would say, of all time. Like the whole final season, every season, it was so good. So what do you think of the finale of The Americans?
It's a great question, Cara. To me, I think everybody kind of, I'm sure, imagined what it will be like at the end for all the characters. Some people are still speculating. People were writing and rewriting. Fans were writing and rewriting the end of Homeland for like at least the last 12 months. I've been reading alternative. Yeah. There's alternative universe. There's great, terrific fans there who go out and they imagine and reimagine the worlds. With America, so basically, to me, what's important is not that the ending is kind of, do I like it, do I not like it? To me, what's important is that it's truthful to the characters and it's truthful to the story. And so if it is, then that's all that matters to me. I don't need to like my character. I don't need to like my character's story. I don't need to like my character's end. What I want for him is what's truthful for him. And as an audience member, I think it's very, very important to kind of have a truthful ending to the story and to the characters. For the Americans, I actually was gunning for the suicide.
You were? Yeah. Get out of here. So tell me about that. Why?
He's a man of honor, and to him, I felt like it would be good for him to take the fall and basically to sort of die in the field as an officer, even though by that stage he was, already sort of, out of the force, and take the honorable death and to make sure that he protects his family, his wife and his son and his parents. But the Jays wouldn't give it to me. I was asking for it for the whole season and they wouldn't give it to me. Oleg ended up in jail as a result.
I just remember that
he got released during the exchange after the disintegration of the Soviet Union, or maybe even during the sort of the warming sort of 80s when Gorbachev came to power.
Yeah, I remember because it was a while ago, and it feels like it was probably a couple of years ago now, right? That it ended, probably like 2 years ago or something. But I just remember seeing you sitting on a bench. Like that was a very big scene, but like I don't even remember exactly what happened in that scene. But I think, like you're saying with the music, how it just, you feel it. It gets inside of you and you feel it. And for some reason, I'm just pulling up this scene in my brain and I just feel something for Oleg then, like I'm not sure what exactly happened in that scene, but I thought.
Well, Oleg's playlist was all very much about sort of very honorable noble music about the noble officers and the noble sort of nobility of the Tsarist Russia, 18th, 19th century, when honor was honor.
Yeah.
And that's what he was a big part of him as a character from the very beginning. That's what that was his core. If you think of a character as an onion, and you pick it up and then you peel it, you get to the core of the onion.
Yeah.
So that's like us as human beings. That's how we kind of get to know ourselves and one another. And so when you create a character, you start with the core, and then you layer all those layers on top. And so his core, at the core of his existence, was honor and doing the right thing. And I think that's kind of effectively what motivated his progression throughout the seasons as well, from being honorable to his friends in the beginning, to Nina, to being honorable to his wife, his son, and his country. Yeah. And that scene with Arkady, when Arkady comes in, he knows he has to go, because he knows that what he's about to do is he's probably gonna die. He knows he's probably not gonna come back. Like when Oleg leaves, that scene with his wife, which was played by the terrific Lanka Boo, and we had a great time shooting that scene in New York, and it was such a warm and emotional scene. And there's a reverse angle, there's a reverse shot where we kind of like, she comes to him and he comes around, and we see his face, and he says that he'll come back, but he knows that he will not come back. And he says it to her. He says that goodbye to her, knowing that he's not going to come back, because chances of him coming back are 0.
Oh my gosh, so sad.